The women's 3,000 meters at the AIT Grand Prix was not just another indoor race. It was a carefully unfolding tactical battle that gradually transformed into one of the most compelling middle-distance showdowns of the season. From the very beginning, there was a quiet sense of anticipation surrounding this event. The start list alone suggested that something special could happen. It brought together experienced athletes with proven credentials and rising talents eager to test themselves at a higher level. Among the most closely watched competitors were Rosie Clark and Keely McGeehan. Both had established themselves as strong performers on the indoor circuit, capable of handling both the tactical and physical demands of a 3,000-meter race. At the same time, all eyes were also on Sarah Healy, a young athlete whose rapid rise had already begun to attract serious attention after her success at the European Under-18 Championships. This combination of experience and youth created a fascinating dynamic even before the gun fired. As the race got underway, the opening meters immediately reflected the expected tactical discipline. There was no frantic sprint for position, no chaotic jostling. Instead, the athletes quickly settled into a controlled formation. The early pace was set with purpose, aided by pacemaking that ensured the field would not fall into a slow, tactical jog. This decision proved crucial, as it established a rhythm that would shape the entire race. From the first few laps, McGeehan positioned herself confidently near the front. Her stride looked smooth and economical, suggesting that she had come into the race with a clear plan, to take control rather than react. Just behind her, Clark mirrored every move. She stayed close, almost shadowing McGeehan, maintaining a position that allowed her to respond instantly to any change in pace. It was a subtle but important psychological battle already beginning to form. Behind the leading pair, the rest of the field organized itself into a compact chase group. Sarah Healy was among those carefully holding position, showing maturity beyond her years. Rather than getting caught in an early surge, she ran with composure, conserving energy while keeping the leaders within reach. This phase of the race was all about patience, knowing that in a 3,000-meter contest, the outcome is rarely decided in the opening laps. As the race moved past the early stages, the rhythm became more defined. The steady tempo began to have its effect. The field started to stretch, not dramatically at first, but enough to reveal who was comfortable at this pace and who was beginning to struggle. McGeehan and Clark continued to lead, their synchronization almost striking. Each stride looked controlled, each lap consistent. They were not just running fast, they were running intelligently. Gradually, a gap began to open. It was small at first, almost unnoticeable unless you were watching closely. But lap by lap, meter by meter, it grew. The leading duo was separating themselves from the rest. This was not the result of a sudden surge, but rather the accumulation of sustained pressure. Their pace was just slightly beyond what the others could comfortably maintain. In the chase pack, the effort to respond became increasingly visible. Athletes like Healy fought to keep contact, but the distance between them and the leaders slowly widened. This is one of the defining characteristics of high-level distance racing. Not explosive moves, but relentless consistency that gradually breaks the field apart. By the midpoint of the race, the narrative had become clear. This was no longer a wide-open contest. It was evolving into a duel. McGeehan remained at the front, continuing to dictate the pace. Clark, however, showed no signs of backing off. She remained composed, her breathing controlled, her stride efficient. Importantly, she resisted the temptation to take the lead too early. Instead, she chose to stay just behind, conserving energy and waiting. This strategic patience added another layer of intrigue. Clark was clearly confident in her finishing ability. By sitting just off McGeehan's shoulder, she placed herself in the perfect position to strike later in the race. At the same time, this also meant allowing McGeehan to set the tempo, a decision that carried its own risks. McGeehan, for her part, seemed fully aware of the situation. She did not attempt any reckless surges, but she also did not ease the pace. Her approach was methodical: maintain pressure, control the race, and force her rival to respond on her terms. It was a display of maturity and tactical awareness that hinted at her growing confidence as an elite competitor. As the laps continued to tick by, the tension steadily increased. The gap to the rest of the field had now become significant. The race for victory was clearly between two athletes. The crowd could sense it. Even without dramatic moves, the anticipation was building with every lap. Approaching the final kilometer, the atmosphere inside the arena began to shift. This is the phase of a distance race where everything changes. The calculations, the patience, the energy conservation, all of it leads to this moment. Clark subtly moved closer, almost drawing level with McGeehan. It was not an attack, but it was a signal. She was ready. McGeehan responded in kind, slightly increasing the pace. It was not a full sprint, but enough to test Clark's reaction. The response was immediate. Clark stayed right there, matching the tempo without hesitation. The duel had officially begun. What made this moment so compelling was the contrast in styles. McGeehan appeared to be the aggressor, controlling from the front, gradually increasing the pressure. Clark, on the other hand, embodied patience and timing, relying on positioning and efficiency. Two different approaches, converging at exactly the right moment. With just a few laps remaining, the race reached a new level of intensity. The pace quickened, and the margin for error disappeared. Every stride mattered. Every decision carried weight. The crowd, now fully engaged, could sense that something decisive was about to happen. And yet, despite the rising intensity, neither athlete committed fully. It was a delicate balance. Push too early, and you risk fading. Wait too long, and you may never get the chance. This psychological battle is what defines elite middle-distance racing, and here it was on full display. As they approached the bell, signaling the final lap, both runners were still locked together. The race had built perfectly to this moment, a head-to-head sprint after nearly 3,000 meters of controlled effort. The question now was simple: who had the stronger finish? The answer, however, was still to come. As the bell rang inside the arena, signaling the final lap, the entire dynamic of the race shifted instantly. Everything that had happened over the previous 11 laps, every calculated move, every controlled breath, every ounce of saved energy, now came down to one decisive circuit. The crowd, already engaged, leaned in even further, fully aware that they were about to witness the defining moment of an already exceptional race. At the front, Keely McGeehan wasted no time. Almost instinctively, she injected a sharp surge into her stride the moment she heard the bell. It wasn't an all-out sprint just yet, but it was a clear escalation, a statement of intent. Her cadence increased, her posture sharpened, and her form remained impressively controlled despite the rising intensity. This was the move she had been preparing for. Right behind her, Rosie Clark reacted immediately. There was no hesitation, no visible panic. Clark had anticipated this moment, and her response was measured but determined. She tightened the gap, staying close enough to keep pressure on McGeehan, but not overcommitting too early. It was a delicate balance, matching the surge without exhausting herself before the final straight. The first half of the lap became a battle of positioning and resilience. McGeehan held the inside line, using it to her advantage, forcing Clark to either remain tucked in behind or attempt a move on the outside. Clark chose patience, staying just off McGeehan's shoulder, waiting for the perfect opening. The tension between them was almost tangible, a silent duel of willpower and tactical awareness. Down the back straight, McGeehan made her decisive move. This time, there was no holding back. She accelerated again, more aggressively, digging deeper into her reserves. Her stride lengthened, her arms drove harder, and for the first time in the race, a visible gap began to form. It was small, just a meter at first. But in a race of this level, even the slightest separation can be decisive. Clark tried to respond. For a brief moment, it looked like she might close the gap. Her form remained composed, and she pushed forward with determination. But the acceleration from McGeehan had come at exactly the right time. It wasn't just about speed. It was about timing, precision, and the ability to access that final reserve of energy when it mattered most. As they approached the final bend, the gap grew slightly larger. McGeehan maintained her momentum, refusing to fade. Her face now reflected the effort, but her stride remained strong. This was the culmination of her race strategy. Control the pace, wear down the competition, and strike decisively in the closing stages. Everything was coming together perfectly. Clark, meanwhile, continued to fight. There was no collapse, no dramatic slowdown. She pushed through the fatigue, trying to keep contact, but the earlier surge had taken its toll. The difference was subtle, but significant. McGeehan had found another gear, and Clark, despite her strength and experience, could not quite match it. Coming off the final bend and into the home straight, the outcome was becoming clear. McGeehan surged forward one last time, fully committing to the finish. The crowd responded instantly, their energy rising with every step she took toward the line. It was no longer just about winning. It was about completing a performance that had been built with precision from start to finish. In the final meters, she held her form, powered through the line, and stopped the clock at 8:48.28. It was a remarkable result. Not only did it secure her victory, but it also represented a massive personal breakthrough. Improving a lifetime best by nearly 7 seconds at this level is no small achievement. It spoke volumes about her preparation, her confidence, and her growing presence in middle-distance running. A few moments later, Clark crossed the line. Her performance, while just short of victory, was still highly impressive. She had executed her race plan with discipline, stayed competitive throughout, and pushed one of the strongest performances of the meet right to the limit. On another day, with slightly different timing, the result could easily have gone the other way. That is the nature of races at this level. Margins are incredibly fine. Behind them, the rest of the field began to finish. Among them, Sarah Healy completed a valuable race. While she was not directly involved in the battle for victory, her performance was significant in its own right. Competing against experienced athletes in a high-quality field provided her with crucial experience, something that would undoubtedly contribute to her development in the years to come. What made this race particularly memorable was not just the result,